You should not know this.
How'd we get here?
How did we get here? The information that's come out in these episodes of the podcast is it's very interesting because Ted's life kind of revolves around what was in episode 5. Really, when you first learn his name, you kind of immediately drawn to his Vietnam years. Learning what he's done, post that is very interesting. His life obviously is taking a bit of a different turn, as is very obvious from the very first episode and the turnpike incident. As we've discussed many times, he's not a very easy person to find. So digging in deep and constructing this in a way that we feel that people will be interested in his life as much as we are. And I think that a lot of hard work has been put in over the last year and a half in this, and I'd like to thank all of the people that are involved with me in this. And it's been a very interesting journey, and we personally have found out a lot more about him. And we're obviously hoping that you're enjoying the story, but we're only halfway through.
How this went down is, for years, people knew that Ted Braden had served in Vietnam. And now finally, in this episode 5, we go to Vietnam. In the first 4 episodes, this is all new information that we're trying to figure out. That's what Tim there was talking about the new finds, because nobody knew the stuff in the first 4 episodes. You have a biker gang, you have the mafia, and in episode 5, the twist of Vietnam. So, Drew, what's going through your mind learning of the mafia and the biker gang and all of the new finds when you previously were aware of the Vietnam stuff?
A friend had suggested to me about a year and a half ago, a high school friend that I'd been out of touch with for years. And he said, I'm telling you, that's mafia. So it was validation there. That was really interesting to hear the Pittsburgh mob ties to me. And of course, the biker gang and all things Pittsburgh. You just feel this energy coming out of Pittsburgh for all things Ted Braden. Pagans, the mafia, the bar, the other crimes, the weird stuff that happened. It's just the fascination that you came to expect is now here, and it's a reality. So it's extremely satisfying. I don't know a better word for it.
You brought up the mafia. Your friend told you about that years ago.
Yes.
That's the thing with Ted. He foreshadows his own story. Now we have confirmation. It makes you wonder what else is out there, because there are other rumors, and we'll get into those too. Ian Glover. I've known Ian for several years, and we decided we needed one more great mind on the project, and here he is.
I really kind of like the format of kind of going forward in time and then back in time here with episode 5 in Vietnam, because Vietnam kind of explains, at least for me, a lot of why what happened in the 80s took place. I think you even said in the episode how Ted Braden was born, the broken man. You get to see how, not just where his skills came about, because a lot of these crimes, a lot of these things he was doing, involvement with the mafia, all these organized crimes requires skill, it requires bravery, it requires also a sort of moral irreverence, which being surrounded by death in a foreign country for years on end can bring about that sort of irreverence. And it all kind of clicks together and explains what seems like just a random string of crimes and into something that actually has a much more tangible narrative.
I suppose we should probably introduce ourselves, being we're 5 episodes in and have done very little of that. My name is D. Raj, and I accidentally began this whole thing, I suppose. It was December of 2024, late at night. I was doing my late at night thing, and a video played in the background on YouTube, and it was about Ted Braden, and it was simply the fact that nobody knew anything about his later life, and I could not let that go. So I was, clicking around, looking up Ted Braden things. In hindsight now, I was down the wrong rabbit hole. But I did take what I found to Drew.
Oh, I thought it was great. It was a godsend. Really. I was extremely excited. Very happy. I could tell you had it together and you had already done some good work, and it was very, very uplifting, liberating, and exciting. You were so good about bird dogging the documents and the FOIAs and getting the police jail cards and all that was just incredible. I mean, to see the paper is exhilarating to me.
So how did you get into it?
I just always liked the story. I was never out to try to solve it. I just liked the story. I liked the intrigue of it. It's something that just kind of up my alley, so to speak. Had a mystique about it. That's what I like. I like stories with mystique. He's steeped in mysticism. So that's kind of how it started for me.
And Tim, you might be the deepest thinker of the bunch. Would you agree?
You'd have to think about that.
I would say I do think a little bit out of the box.
You do the deepest dives. Put it that way.
I tried looking at it from different whatever story I'm looking at, whatever I'm interested in. I look at it from the different angles of most people. I like to deep dive on information. If I've given a piece of information, I'm almost like a private investigator. I like to try and find, like you did yourself with starting off with the video and finding newspaper articles and sitting. I know you sit there for hours and really study stuff. My temperament's a little bit less than that. I can't do it for such a long time, but I'm one of these people that I obsess over what I'm doing at that point in time. So going back to something that Drew said earlier. I've known Drew for many, many years, and obviously the subject that sort of links us is Ted Braden. And we've had sort of discussions over the years where, you get one little tiny piece of information, or maybe someone finds a new photograph of Ted, and you get really excited, and then it goes really quiet because, as you know, finding information about this guy is it's few and far between. So you can go for like 6 months and not find anything on him, or nothing comes up, or no one brings you anything, and then one little tiny snippet. And I'm sure the day that you contacted Drew and said, I found this, or I'm interested in helping you find this, it reignites it inside. We've had this discussion, me and Drew, many times. He says to me, I feel reignited because of the work that you're doing, and I'll find something in the depths of the internet that Drew didn't know about, or he'll find something that I didn't know about, and it does reignite. Ted is something that will always be back in. It's weird to say this, but he's always in the back of your mind. May not be in the forefront, but then one little piece of, if someone sent me a new photograph of Ted Braden that I'd never seen before, that would it excites you because there is nothing on this guy. Your idea of turning this into an investigation where people can help, there may be a guy listening to the podcast. I recognize those traits. I recognize the sound of that guy. It's such an amazing idea, such a great idea.
Ted Braden was a big drinker. We talk about that a lot in the podcast. And Ian Glover is the newest investigator, and he's also a brewer. What kind of beer would Ted drink?
What would he drink? I don't even know if he'd drink beer. I think he'd just drink liquor. Some classic American, whatever you got at a dive bar kind of thing. Although he was very brand loyal to his cigarettes, I remember. So maybe he was very particular about what beer. Maybe it was strictly Coors Banquet or something, who knows?
Banquet.
Yeah.
Fancy.
That's the good stuff right there.
I like it.
I think he's a liquor man. I just picture him being.
He may have drank a beer too.
Yeah, I mean, he may have been. Well, obviously we know about the Schaefer's Bar. Maybe he did. I just get the feeling that maybe truckers would have a nice cold beer after a long day on the road.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think generally he was probably a little snifter here and there, or a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hang on. I need a drink, guys. Hang on a second.
Speaking of drinks.
All this talk about booze.
Okay.
It's funny, Tim, because you brought up, taking time to do the meticulous digging and looking into things.
I found a manual for PPG. I think it's 1947 or something like that. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and I'm sitting there reading this. I mean, if you'd have said to me, Tim, 5 years ago, would you be reading a PPG 1947 chemical manual to find some information on Ted Braden? I'd say you're crazy, man. So I was sat there for hours reading it. So maybe I am, maybe I have got the patience. But
You're mad.
I am mad. I am. But
it's funny because people come at us saying that we have found the wrong Ted Braden or we're on the wrong trail.
Yeah, I wonder why.
That isn't true.
That means you're on the right trail.
The robbery, the shop and save robbery, nobody knew about that, including us. We got on the trail of the Ohio Turnpike in Erie County, and we found the newspapers. The second newspaper article mentioned a Pittsburgh bank robbery. Well, that was brand new to the entire universe. So I headed off. In Pittsburgh, right. So I went to newspapers.com and I spent 3.5 entire days going through every single bank robbery article in Western Pennsylvania before I narrowed it down to that shop and save robbery. And it was not confirmed that we had the right robbery until Bernie's court documents mentioned it. It was redacted, but you could read through it.
I must have had 50 messages saying you're looking in the wrong place. It was Ted Braden would never be seen dead wearing cowboy boots. Those were the cowboy boots of those were the boots of the dead sheriff. Sending me pictures of sheriff's boots.
Of the robbery?
Nope, he wasn't part of the robbery. He wasn't.
Well, we have proof it was.
I mean, we have social security numbers.
Proof. You can't get any more proof than that.
No, I know.
It's just provable. We're in this reality.
People, a very small percentage of people, seem to think we have some sort of
bias,
agenda. When in fact, we're just with jazz hands going, look what we found. Look what we found. That's all we're doing. Look what we found.
That's all we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, but to be honest with you,
it's funny.
Everybody has.
I mean, I don't.
Yes, to be honest with you, we actually do have an agenda, and I'm assuming
to get the word out.
Yeah, to get the word out about Ted Braden because he's a very interesting guy, and the thing about it is he has one of the most amazing stories out of anyone.
True, no one ever denied that.
There should be a movie made about him. They say that. True. I think the story, from episode 5 onwards. The first 4 episodes are about an elderly gentleman who's done a few naughty things, who's probably got some quite interesting bedfellows, criminal associates. Was probably doing a bit of let's be honest, he wasn't a master criminal. I mean, he was doing some really interesting crimes. I would not be if someone phoned me up one day and said, "Tim, you're on the right track." Someone an anonymous phone call, "Tim, you're on the right track."
It's coming.
My question would be, what side was it? If I could get one question into this anonymous person on the phone, it'd be what side was he on? Because I still doubt. But he's definitely being protected. We all agree. We all agree he's being protected in some way.
Oh yeah. No doubt. There's no way around it.
Can he be a mafioso and be protected by the goodies?
Absolutely. Look at JFK.
You think so?
JFK assassination. I think everybody through the years, I'm not real big into it, but I think everybody's of the opinion of JFK that this was a team effort between the mafia and the CIA. I think that's a in the JFK circles, I think that's probably going to get 80% on any group. Is that it's CIA and mafia together.
There's a reason we left Pittsburgh and went back in time. 15 years, give or take. I guess the question is, did Vietnam create this guy from the 1980s doing the Pittsburgh crimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think a lot comes from his Vietnam years in terms of his priorities. And, certainly his skill and ability to navigate really extreme situations, kind of things where he found himself in heists and robberies and that sort of thing. Everything we learned about him in Vietnam suggests that he excelled. His peak performance was in extreme circumstances, and he liked to be in extreme circumstances. So, you leave Vietnam, where you are required to do these things, go back into the civilian life where you're not supposed to do these things, but it's in him. He has to do it. So he finds ways to get his fix, I think. And I think Vietnam very much sets the stage for how he conducted himself later in life.
Did it create him or enable him?
Yeah, I think Vietnam left him with a sense of not having much respect or value for his life and those of others. Just for the fact that life had very little value in Vietnam. I mean, its value was how much damage could you do, basically, and how effectively could you do that damage. And you get out into the real world, and if you do not value the lives of those around you, you don't value yourself, and you have this ability to get stuff done in situations that no one else is accustomed to, then you pretty much have, you have very minimal limitations, And if you don't have morality bumping up against you, and you don't have a lack of ability bumping up against you, why not go rob a bank? What's going to stop you?
Drew, do we see Vietnam traits come out in 1980s Ted Braden?
Coming out of Vietnam, he most certainly had PTSD from being in combat for so long. Even his boss at the time, which was a Colonel Scotty Career, took kind of the blame for them having him in combat for so long in such consecutive combat missions that he did. I mean, it's like an endurance record. I think he took blame for that. So I think that really made it psychologically worse, having 17 months of warfare with a few breaks in the middle, but very small breaks, just constant combat, stress of combat, which didn't seem to bother him. He was already kind of removed from fear. He had this no fear of death at all. He would sleep on the edge of an NVA bunker. That's complete insanity. It was an occupied NVA bunker in Laos, and he spends the night on the edge of the bunker that's full of NVA guys, which aren't just going to capture you and kill you. They're going to capture you and torture you for probably 2 weeks till you die. So the fact that he just decides to make a good spot there on the ground and get a few hours shut-eye is showing you what mental state he was already in. Him leaving early really doesn't make sense because he had already served enough time. So I think his mental illness, the PTSD, is really coming home to roost in the 80s, where he's just unafraid and looking for a few dollars for getting alcohol, cigarettes, whatever, his girlfriend, money. Maybe he's not living as high on the hog, but just needs to pull in enough money to make a living. And I think that's kind of where we see the progression going out of Vietnam, is what we did find. You really uncovered in the 80s is kind of something that I would have expected.
Ted could keep quiet on the turnpike with Trooper Meyer. Meyer even remarked on that, how this guy was in complete control, drunk enough to pee his blue jeans, but complete control. Was Ted in control of that arrest on the turnpike?
I'm very interested in mental health. One of the things that interests me the most is what was their mind like when they were going through that particular event, whether it be the store robbery or the and I have said this many times in episodes of the podcast. I'm sure it's ones that we've already listened to. Is how can you be that drunk? And I did say I'm sure most people on the planet have had a drink, and I'm sure most people on the planet have, had a little bit too much to drink. How can you be like that and not reveal any information? Because your inhibitions are, if not gone, they are reduced. So I can't actually answer that question. I look at that DUI, and I look at a gentleman who, on the outward view, seems to be drunk to the point where he is urinating on himself and the turnpike, as you said, but will not give any information. He's not being obstructive, and most people who are very drunk, I would say, can be pretty obstructive. I'm not saying everyone. So he has control even when he is wasted. I think there's training involved here. Ted is all about, I'm turning left, so I'm going to make you look right. That is Ted in a nutshell.
Diversion.
Yeah, I do wonder whether he is in control in all these situations. Was he literally just a drunk? If it is not quite what it seems, it would not surprise me with Ted Braden.
Ted sat in the Erie County Jail for months. It's an awful place to be. all he had to do was give his name, and it would be over. And then we find, when he does finally give his name, the FBI rushes in to take him out, consequence-free.
That one has me puzzled too, yeah, because if he knew he had protection, why wouldn't he just, give his name? Maybe he was waiting, Maybe he was waiting until somebody caught on that he was in there and came to save him. I'm not sure.
Well, I have a theory on this, guys.
Okay, good. Because I don't.
What if a deal of some kind was being brokered while he was sitting in jail?
Oh.
Then he was simply waiting for the brokerage of the deal to be finished up.
Like dicks.
And who do you think the two sides were in the deal?
Well, clearly the FBI or someone close to them, correct? Because they took him out? Or what do you think?
Ted seems to like being part of organizations, doesn't he? But there could be another organization involved. That is interesting. Yeah, like Ian said, why did he just not say, I am Ted Braden? That name would have got to someone eventually, and I'm sure they would have just let him out, or.
He also probably knew that he was wanted. He may have been wanted for a lot of crimes at the time, and we know he was wanted for at least one robbery, and so it might have been, he gives up his name, and suddenly he's on the hook for things more than just a DUI. I don't know.
All right, Drew, this Rambo unit, what was that called?
It was called MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command Vietnam was the V, and then SOG for Studies and Observations Group, a rather benign sounding name, which is the way they wanted it to be.
Well, I'm getting questions about this. People wanting to know about, did we have their back? Did we not have their back? How exactly did that work?
We did. We unofficially did not have their back, but in reality, we did have their back to a high extent through a network of the other guys that were in the unit. If they were caught or got into trouble when they were in countries that they were not supposed to be in, as per the Geneva Accords, we could not admit to being over in these various countries like Laos and Thailand. But when the guys got over there, if another team got in trouble, they would send out another team under what they called a bright light mission to go rescue that team. So they did have their backs in that sense, but on paper, it appeared that their own government abandoned them.
This team they saw get wiped out.
Yes, that was called RT Arizona. It was headed up by a guy named Raymond Echeverria, good friends with his daughter to this day. They were over in Laos and got overrun, and the people could have been there. They were hunted as soon as they hit the ground. There's a lot of talk about in later years that they had a mole inside of SOG that was tipping them off where their LZs were, which stands for landing zone, and they would basically know where they were going to land. So it was a real big advantage for the bad guys. But these guys got overrun in such a quick fashion and in such by big numbers. There was really nothing anyone could do. Ted Braden's team was not very, very far away. They could hear the commotion. And Ted's number two, of course, Al Keller at the time said, can we make some noise over here and try to help the guys out? And he responded to him. He said, no, we're just too far away. There's nothing we can do about this. And according to the story, Ray had made one final contact to the air support and said, drop all your ordnance right where we are because these guys are on top of us, meaning you're not going to save us. We're gone. So just go ahead and hit our position, because in hitting our position, you're going to hit a lot more enemy. Unfortunately, we're going to be done away with, but so are the bad guys. So that's what makes that such a really heart-wrenching ordeal and story. And, the remains, unfortunately, have not been recovered to this day.
I think this is useful context to know that SOG Special Forces members, about half of them didn't survive. More than half of them didn't survive. Another fun fact, which just shows how incredibly deadly these guys were, is that on average, SOG members killed about 158 people per member. So 158 to 1 kill rate, which is...
It's insane.
It's astounding.
It's insane, yeah.
It was an extreme group. At the end, I've asked most of the guys I know that were in it, why did you join up for something that was, the saying at the time was you'll either get a coffin or a Purple Heart. Of course, most of them were wounded at least twice, fairly severely wounded. One thing to add to that is it was all volunteer. You could drop out the next day. You really could. You could say, I went on one mission and it was very hair raising. I got into more than I thought I could, and I want to get out. And there was no making fun of them. There was no black mark on their record. There was nothing ever said about it. It was strictly volunteer. If you wanted to get out, you could leave that day.
Did that happen a lot?
Not really. No. Jim talks about it a lot. He said it rarely happened. These guys were committed and they were going to stay in. And, Jim summed it up best. He said it was more about going to protect your friends, because you knew your friends were going off into the hostile, wild beyonder, and you wanted to be there with them to do the most you could do to make sure they got back safely. He said it became that. Really more about getting your friends back than anything.
Ted Braden accused of murdering an Allied soldier. That Allied soldier was a South Vietnamese soldier. So Vietnam was actually a civil war. The North was fighting the South. The United States allied with the South to fight the Communist North. And Ted Braden, for whatever reason, didn't like his allied South soldiers, and he ended up allegedly killing one. Was Ted racist?
I mean, these were earlier times, simpler times, and racism was a lot more common and prevalent back then. It wouldn't surprise me if it was just old-fashioned racism on Ted's part, but there may have been more to it. He may have had a bad experience that caused him to generalize. It's hard to say. There's one leader that was South Vietnamese, and he was super young too, wasn't he? Like 14 years old or something. The one that he threw on the ground and he basically took over command after that.
Made him cry,
yeah. Maybe he just didn't want to be working with young people and thought that, given his age and that he had seniority and didn't need to be talked down to by anyone so young.
Tim, your take on that alleged murder?
What you've got to remember here, that each SOG member averaged, 158 kills per member. I mean, this was a war. Obviously this guy that Ted allegedly dispatched was on his side. I mean, we get glimpses of the story, and things are probably moving at 100 miles an hour. It's not something I want to really comment on in too much detail, because I would hate to think that I got it wrong. It's a very it's a stark subject. All we know is that there is the alleged dispatch of a friendly soldier.
It is a fact that he did not like ARVN men. That's Army of the Republic of Vietnam. That is the South Vietnamese fighters that fought along with us. I don't know if that's racial, or maybe he thought the Americans just had better control. I will say this. A lot of the SOG guys fought with what they call indigenous fighters, mostly what they called the mountain yards, meaning mountain people, indigenous to the area, and they made really good fighters. They loved them. They were very, very easy to train. They were very loyal, and they would actually send in bright light missions to try to save their indigenous fighters. Just as much as they would try to go recover the body of an American, they would try to go recover the body of one of their yards, as they called them for short. So they did not have any racial animosity towards the yards. And I can tell you, Braden did not either, because he's one of the first guys that said they should make meals that these indigenous guys would like more than something that was American. Maybe make their own meals, something more to their palate. And of course, later in MACV-SOG, they all started eating the local food, because your skin would give off the smell of American food, or American MRE, so to speak, which I think that term comes later. When they would go to the bathroom out there in the field, they would go through it to see if you were American or not by what you digested. But in that respect, I don't see any racism of Ted towards the yards.
What about the people later in his life? Gato, Bernie?
I kind of see them more as enablers than... I think they just brought out some of Ted's worst instincts and kind of gave him an outlet for those instincts too, you know? So they were like his B-grade war buddies almost, you know? They gave him a way to somebody to collaborate with, to do some dirty deeds and probably have some fun. I mean, it's probably fun for him.
I don't think Ted has had many friends in his lifetime, actually. Real friends. They're not your friend. They're just aiding you in that, you know, in that job, you know, to get the money at the end of it.
They have aligned interests.
Money-minded, as it were. I do get the not being open. I mean, there is situations in lifetime sometimes you have to keep quiet about certain things. Not telling about the children is interesting. There may have been a reason, but I mean, I actually don't think Ted had, you know, any real, you know, friends. I mean,
we have on paper Bernie, the accomplice, who spent the 70s through the 80s in serious legal trouble. Bernie and Ted Braden in the early 1950s. Bernie was a teenager living with his mom and dad. Ted was a young married guy with a couple of young kids. Early 50s, they lived about a 15-minute drive apart in Michigan.
Fascinating.
Huh.
Is that when they met? Did they know each other? Were they longtime friends?
Well, I'll be damned.
I always wondered the connection to the Detroit area and Grosse Pointe. I thought it was maybe his first wife had some connection to Detroit or Grosse Pointe, Michigan.
His first wife, correct. Serious educator, brilliant lady. She raised the kids without Ted. She lived in a very nice suburb of Detroit, one of the nicest.
She remarried well, and she had a lot of stepchildren. And another thing that's interesting about her is that she kept a great relationship with her first mother-in-law, Mary Dearbaugh, which of course is Ted Braden's mother. They kept that relationship all through the years until the death of Mrs. Dearbaugh. They kept that relationship, and they would see each other when they could. And there is a photograph that exists of them at advanced ages, especially Mrs. Dearbaugh, because she was, of course, a little older than her first daughter-in-law. But they kept the relationship many decades after the relationship between Ted and his first wife, Rosalind.
She was brilliant, put together, and it makes you wonder what Ted was like in the 40s when they met.
Hard to
because
deal
maybe
with.
he changed. Maybe he changed along the way.
I think he was hard to deal with. Even World War II could have been enough to have been.
Maybe alcohol ruined this guy along the way. We don't know when he started drinking.
I think all of it probably played a role, because she was a good lady. From what I know, she was a great lady.
do you think he started drinking? Do you think he started drinking seriously in Vietnam, or do you think it was later?
That's a good question.
Yeah, he didn't become an alcoholic at age 40.
Yeah, I don't know if he drank to excess. Of course, no, when he was in SOG, he was 36, 37.
I might be wrong here, but is there a lot of opportunity to drink when you're out? You know, when you're there. I mean,
Yes.
Notwithstanding the fact that
absolutely.
there is.
Oh yeah, they had their own bars back on the FOBs, the forward operating bases.
If you're out on a mission in the jungle, are you drinking?
No.
No.
Okay, so he would go extended periods of time with no alcohol.
Yeah, that's true. You would not take it on a mission. The weight of it alone, you wouldn't take. Even a can of beer could compromise. It's more weight to be extracted, to be inserted. No, I'd say they went many days without it. They had cigarettes, of course, but I'd say no, alcohol. I'd say no, not unless they went into tribal villages, which was customary to drink the rice wine they would make there, because part of Special Forces was making inroads with the villagers.
Well, you have to be polite.
The head of the village would want you to drink the rice wine, which I'm told tasted like crap, but it was ceremonial to drink it with the tribal chief. And it was done as a symbol of coming together.
Yeah. If you look at the window, we've got a window here. I mean, he left Vietnam in late 1966. And we know that he was pretty much a drunk by 1982, right? Because that's when he was weeing on himself.
Absolutely. Sloshingly so.
That's not a very long period of time, is it?
Correct. We know he drank in the 60s because they had the club at the, they call it the Parachute Club at, either Wiesbaden, Germany. I can't remember the name of the German towns, but him and his buddy, who can remain nameless, they would drink into the late hours talking about their shared experience. But they had bars in Vietnam. They had they called them the team house. So when they got back from a mission, you bet they hit that bar first.
So where did all the alcohol was shipped over from America, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, if they can ship a horse over there, they can ship over alcohol.
Did you know, one thing I found out recently, did you know that Raleigh Cigarettes would ship massive packs of cigarettes over to Vietnam?
I'll have to look into that.
One thing that has always come up about him is that he was very generous.
Very generous.
And there was no examples of it that we could prove. Now, obviously, we've had the friend at the bar, let's call him the friend at the bar, who said that Ted was a good guy, and basically would buy them drinks. I mean, there's a generous streak that runs through him, For all the things that Ted Braden has done since the day he was born until the day he died, I do think there was a nice guy somewhere in the middle there. I don't think he had enough friends. I think his life...
He wouldn't let you close to him. Jim really tried. Jim Hedrick really tried to get to know him. He'd see him sitting alone, sulking is the word he used at the end of the bar when they'd get back from a mission. And he'd approach him and say, hey, just trying to get to know him in a friendly way. And he said he just put up walls around him. Like you could not get to know him on a personal basis. He just...
Isn't that amazing?
Maybe because he was a subordinate. I don't know if it's because he was a subordinate. I don't know. But Jim said he tried very hard to get to know him on a personal level, and he would not allow him in.
Isn't that incredible for a guy who was essentially as hard as nails physically? That to me sounds like something from a hark back from an early life.
Oh yeah, Tilly. Tilly said he made him so nervous that he'd switch hands. I love that story. Tilly said, man, he walked into the club, and remember Tilly said the word club, so they had clubs, which are basically bars on the team house bars was what he meant. But he said he'd switch his drink to his right hand, and he'd switch his drink to his left hand and his right hand on his pistol because he was right-handed. So he'd quit drinking with his right hand and start with his left so he could get to his pistol because Braden made him feel so unnerved just being in the room.
The friend at the bar, Frank. The investigation began in December of 2024, and it wasn't until maybe August or September of 25 that we found Frank. Before we found Frank, we were in touch with a relative of Jerry, the bar owner, and she went through all of these contacts that Jerry had, and very few are left. Frank is one of them, and he was a huge find, and he is the one who dumped this mafia information on us. And it absolutely all adds up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that does add up. I mean, that adds up with the trailer full of stolen whiskey that was found behind that bar in Pittsburgh. It explains why a secret boss might have existed, why he was waiting by a phone at a bar all hours of the day and night. It explains where surplus money came from. It may even explain some of the protection patterns. So, I mean, it fits so well with so many of the things that occurred in Ted's life post-war.
Drew mentioned something earlier in this discussion. One of his friends had said, that kind of deal, they are definitely mafia. Yep. That was, I would say that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2.
About 2 years ago, Drew said that to me. And now, where are we?
Confirming it.
Confirmed. And this is what's incredible about this, what I was saying about earlier about pieces of information. You'll find one piece of information a year ago, and then someone will come in with another little piece of information, and it confirms what the suspicion.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah, Ted is a very slow burn.
It's a puzzle, a slow burn puzzle.
Joseph Gato. He has a son. I have sent him a letter. He received the letter. He did not reply. Today, about an hour before we recorded, I messaged this man, and he received it, and he read it. I have not heard back.
Strange.
Hopefully we do. Sir, if you hear this, we just want truth and clarity. That is all. We don't want anything else from you. We don't want to exploit you or your dad. So talk to us. Truth and clarity is all we want.
He was the Chicken Hill guy, right?
Bandit.
Chicken Hill Bandit.
Chicken Hill Bandit. Here's this aging, rail-thin dude that's been involved with crime his entire life and stayed out of jail for most of it. It leads me to think, I mean, a professional criminal operating in a city that is dominated by the mafia, to thrive in that environment, you kind of have to be one of them. Otherwise, you're competition, right? That's my thought anyway.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
Well, Ted got around, okay? Ted moved around. Ted wasn't stuck in Pennsylvania. Gato was. Gato never left Pennsylvania. He seemed to get some of the same protection of the sweeping under the rug. Was Gato a police informant?
Oh.
Interesting.
Wow.
They're going after bigger fish.
For a man who stood on top of a hill and basically battled against 200 police, you know, I mean, yeah, maybe they did him a deal. Police, that kind of thing, you're never going to know. I mean, that's the whole point of it, isn't it? You know.
Well, maybe the Sun would know.
That would be cool. Yeah, maybe.
I just want truth and clarity. That's all we want.
Maybe that's why he was out of prison, is because he did, struck a deal and, I mean, possible, right?
Oh. Gentlemen, it's been fun.
Yeah,
excellent.
We should do it again, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Oh, sure.
Drew Beeson, Tim Wallace, Ian Glover. I'm D. Raj. It's a premium, although maybe we'll make them free. Should we do a vote? Should we make these episodes free to everybody? Let's see some hands. Free, guys?
I'm leaning slightly towards free, maybe just for the first season.
So people understand what we're
just
doing.
I like the
circular
to build
storytelling.
listenership.
Well, there you have it. Premium episodes just became free.
Because they start circular and they come back around. I love that storytelling.
And then season 2, once everyone's hooked and they can't get enough, then it's like, oh, well, now we're going to charge you for this extra content, maybe. Once
they call that strategery.
There we go.
Very good. We'll be back, episode 6, the free premium episode, in a week. Bye-bye.
See the files behind the series when you subscribe at youshouldnotknowthis.org.